I got a little work to do on my 1989 Jetta Diesel. The alternator has gotten real noisy on it. I suspect the bearings are probably getting loose on it. When you drive cars that old, you got to expect things to fall off of them. I will probably even take the alternator apart and put bearings in it. I think I have a set of bearings here for it. Often I'll take it over to Abernathy in Calhoun and have him rebuild them, but this one I'm going to replace it with another used one I got off of a different car so I can drive it. We're going to go ahead and get on with pulling the alternator out. It's not a particularly difficult job. You got to unloosen a couple things, take some bolts off, and just flip them out.
Hurry up!
Looking under the hood, there are some basic components that's all attached to the engine. You can see the top of the engine there. You can see the injection pump there. Also the air cleaner up over here left, and ultimately the alternator, which I'm going to pull out. The first thing I'll do is pull this upper radiator hose out of the way. I'll just use a little cable tie for that. God, I love these things. But the big difference between gasoline and diesels are with the alternator. They use the same alternator on a gasoline engine, except they'll actually move the top of the alternator back and forth to tighten the belt. And a diesel, you'll see down here, they have a little idler pulley that slides back in and out to adjust belt tension. And I've got to loosen that up before I pull the alternator off. For this, we'll get this bolt and take a 17 millimeter end wrench and loose so it'll slide out. Obviously, we don't want to drop our wrench down there. There. Take two. Now you know take two. Loosen that up. And it's hard to see. There is an adjuster bolt right there. I've got to loosen that nut up, and I can't do it and film it at the same time because the camera's in the way. But before I go any further, I'm going to put my rubber gloves on so I won't get grease all over my fingers so bad. I have orange gloves because I think they're pretty. I don't really think there's any difference in the material they're made of. I just like orange because it makes me feel orange. If you were in a hospital, they'd call that PPEs, which stand for Personal Protective, I don't remember. Anyway, all right, I'm gonna reach around here and loosen this nut up, bolt, if you want to get technical, and pop the belt off. And you can see I have the belt off now. A rule of thumb when working on a vehicle: if there is any way that you can employ the use of a power tool as opposed to doing it by hand, you should do so, even if it takes twice as long to pull the air hose over here and get the power tools out. That's what we're going to do next. Is I'm going to have to bring my air hose over so I can use my air impact to take the nuts loose. When you're tightening bolts down, especially in aluminum housings, you really don't want to use your air impact wrench for that because you can strip the bolts out and destroy the threads. So you can run them in a little bit with the power tools, but you really need to tighten them by hand. Ask me how I know. So I got to get my air hose to run my power tool. Plug that in. Now we've got our air hose. Another good practice when using air impact wrenches is give it a little touch of oil every time you use it, a couple drops, because it needs lubrication. I love that sound. We come over here and I get a 13 millimeter socket and we're ready to rock and roll. We'll take this top mounting bolt off. Ta-da! Set that back on the workbench so we won't lose it. Then there's a big mounting bolt on the bottom that comes off, and then the whole thing just lifts out. There's the bolt right there. And then it comes out like this. Here it comes out. This is the bolt that holds the bottom mounting. I got two more nuts to take off. They're just brackets that hold the wiring on. You don't want to drop them because you lose them. I don't have that many of those around here and they're a pain in the ass. And of course you drop a screw down that hole. And let me get you right. I spend a huge amount of time working, doing a simple job, dropping shit and losing it. Well, I can't find it now. Doesn't matter. Let's just pull this thing out. And then the alternator comes right out. I don't know if you can hear this on camera. That's not a happy sound. So now we have the alternator out, and I'll show you where this mounting bolt went. It went right down here and there. That's what holds the base of it on. And this is where the nut goes that holds the top on. I found my little nut that got off, so I have it to put back on the new alternator. You spin it, it's smooth. It's not new, it came off a different car. And then we put it back in the way we got it out. Put the alternator in. Sometimes what we have to do, here that's a bushing, it slides in and out so it'll hold the alternator in. Sometimes you have to get a punch and drive it back out to give you a little bit of space. Or makeshift punch, doesn't take much. There, that'll fix it. Should be able to slide that in a little easier. Put our bolt back in, put our top bolt in, and we're good to go. There, now we can pull our protective tape back off, put that on, exactly as I tell you not to do, with a good reason. Never easy to get on. Everything's got to be a trial. There, and there. And then we tighten our adjuster. You can't see it because that, did I mention that hose is getting on my nerves? We put back our little vacuum lines that we knocked loose in the process, and we're good to go. Next order of business is to start it up and make sure the alternator works. That was a job. Now that's fixed. Now I gotta look at the other alternator. I don't know if I'm gonna do that tonight or not. I just wanted to get something on there that was viable, because I noticed on my last trip it was rattling and making a lot of noise. Plus I had a failure with the voltage regulator in it a few trips back in Ohio, out in the middle of nowhere, and had to buy 2 batteries to drive home at night. Whole nother story you don't want to hear about. Not about that anyway. So we got that done. Now, as you can see, somebody needs to go to the hand washing station and get his hands washed.